Hey, today we're going to talk about the darkest moment in any manager's life, and that is restructuring and layoffs. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the difference between emotionally for a manager or leader, the difference emotionally when you're firing somebody versus laying off, and the emotional consequence you face as a manager when you're dealing with certain layoffs, and the difference between layoffs and how they feel and whatever. We're going to unpack a whole bunch of stuff today, but it has to do with layoffs. And especially around the holiday season when you're faced with this burden, it is especially impactful personally if you are a human being with feelings. And most of us are, right? And it takes a while before you get to a place of being completely weathered. And you know, so here's the secret. The secret is that deep down, business owners love times of restructuring. Usually it's a negative thing that makes them go in that direction. So normally there's a regulation that's come down or something has impacted the sector, which impacts revenue, and the company's going through a problem. The why companies love restructuring is because by the time you get to that place, you've identified what the problems are. And under the umbrella of restructuring, you can do a lot of things. So you can start to see what functions or services that your company is offering and whether that actually positively impacts the bottom line. And if it doesn't, well, during the time of restructuring is the time that you eliminate those functions and you eliminate those roles. You start to find efficiencies and mistakes in terms of ordering or in terms of logistics and inventory. You know what I mean? Now is the time that you kind of audit the whole business to see where the hemorrhage is coming from, what's causing the bleeding in terms of revenue. And labor is always usually one of the biggest expenses in any company. So of course labor obviously comes under scrutiny. And the thing about that is the first round of cuts is great because now's the time to get rid of people that you normally have no excuse. So maybe they lack luster, they're not that great, but they're not awesome either, but they don't do anything that's worthy of termination. So a time of restructuring is a good time to get rid of all the weak links in your staff, all the ones that are late all the time and don't really like the job and are toxic to the environment and all of that stuff. So great time to do that. So the first round of cuts for business owners and even managers is a good thing. They enjoy that because finally you get rid of the people you wish weren't there in the first place. But sometimes that first level of finding efficiencies and restructuring doesn't fix the problem. And so there has to be a deeper cut. And it's that deep cut that will wound you the most as a manager. Because remember, you've already put on the chopping block everyone you didn't like or who wasn't efficient, which means anybody that was left was the cream of your crop. And in many cases, you will have worked with these people many years. You will know their children. You will love their children. You will love them personally. You at this point may know intimately their own private problems and why they need that job. And you, under the direction of your owners or authority, or if you own the business, will finally have to admit that I can't keep them anymore. And then you've got to face letting them go and laying them off. And that's a hard thing to face. So on the one hand, because you don't want to affect productivity and morale while this decision's being made, it's often kept away from staff. Staffers don't know, and then they get blindsided. They come in one day and there's pink slips. Sorry. And everyone's sent home. But, hey, enough. But if it's a small family business, well, that's a whole other situation because odds are the staff feel it coming. They've been seeing problems for months or whatever. So that's already an impact. But in a small family business, there's also a bigger level of intimacy too, where friendships develop. So now as a manager, you feel non-integral hiding something like this. So you want to give your friend enough notice that maybe they can find another gig before you have to lay them off. But in any case, whether you tell them in advance and give them time or whether you blindside them, you're going to devastate them regardless. Because they will feel like they're not of value. or that they didn't try hard enough, or they didn't work hard enough. And in some cases, whatever the situation is out of their control. You could be the best employee ever, but if the function that you operate does not generate revenue, how hard you try, how great you are, and how much you're loved cannot come into play when that decision is being made. And but how do you it's not you, it's us, you know what I mean? How do you make any breakup smooth? You can't. So it's a devastating conversation, and you will be breaking somebody's heart, especially the ones that really tried and stayed till the end and gave it their all, and their all wasn't enough. And you're the one that has to deliver that poison pill, and then not just see, this is somebody you love, right? So now you're watching them cry in front of you, you're worried about them financially, you're worried about their future, and there's not a damn thing you can do because it's out of your hands. And you have to do that. You have to be able to have the fortitude to say the words nobody wants to say, and deal with the emotion. And when it's someone who doesn't deserve to lose their job because they're amazing and they're loyal, which is so hard to find. Sometimes you find the perfect person, and you have to do it anyway. And then you have to live with yourself, And when you're facing that, let me tell you, there's no turning it off at 5 o'clock or not thinking about it over the weekend, or I'll enjoy my Christmas and deal with it after. There's no enjoying anything. It's in the back, everybody's cheers and yay and hugs and whatever, and you're sitting in a chair and your brain is going a mile a minute of how you're going to save this job, or how you're going to say it, or how are they going to react, or whatever. That is how you spend your, dinner and Christmas and mornings, and you wake up in the middle of the night with anxiety attacks, and the board pushes you to the point that then you're vomiting out of anxiety. That's what you're facing. And it would be easy for me to say, so you just have to shut off your emotions and have boundaries and whatever, but then you don't live a human life. You know what I mean? And not all companies are these massive corporations where everybody's a number. And even in those massive corporations where everybody's a number, maybe the executives that are deciding to axe the job, you know what I mean, can be detached. But for the manager that's actually telling the person they've been their manager for and coaching them and growing them and putting all this energy into them for so long, only to have to push them out of the nest, is devastating. Absolutely devastating. Dealing with layoffs of good staff is going to hurt you more than your staff dying. I've been in workplaces where there have been tragic deaths, untimely deaths even. And you would think that would hurt the business, but it doesn't. It actually brings everybody together. And everybody works extra hard for him, for the memory of him or her, you know what I mean? And so tragedy like a death will actually bring everyone together. A tragedy like a layoff, especially layoff of good staff, of staff that everybody knows, wow, for them to be let go, things are really serious, and only completely anybody non-essential is out the door, and it's brought down to a really tight-knit small crew that is now working quadruple duty to cover, because you can't, when you lay someone off, you can't replace them. The whole point is you can't replace them, even if you wanted to. So it's hard on everybody. And that is the most demoralizing thing you will ever face as a manager. And there's no way for me to tell you to cope with that. You tell yourself all the things, that you did everything you could, that this was something that the sector created or the economy created or out of your hands, you know what I mean? There was nothing more you could do. And shit happens, and we try to be as nice as possible and as supportive as possible. You write them a million amazing reference letters, anything you can do to ease your guilt and your anguish. And then I listen to opera really, really loud and drink wine. That's how I cope with that. So, not healthy. Oh, the opera might be healthy. I don't know if the wine is a healthy coping mechanism for me to suggest, but opera and wine. But, there's nothing that's going to make me feel better. Nothing. Maybe if they win a lottery, I'll feel better, but those are the things that sometimes you have to face as an employer. The miracle comes if all of a sudden you get a rush of business that you can then bring them back really fast. That's before they find another job. But, and that's the hope and that's the intention. But sometimes you just have to face things the way they are. And, when you've done this, so when you've cleaned house, as devastating as it is, so now you're left, as a manager by yourself without any supporting staff. So now you have to do your job plus everybody else's job that are now gone, and find a way to either eliminate tasks, eliminate services, and start from scratch. And then eventually, as you rebuild, you can rebuild in a way where the priorities are different, that won't be affected by sector changes. The new growth that will come of that small core will be more in keeping with the new changes or the new paradigm that created the problem in the first place. So now you'll be sustainable on the long term and you'll do great. And because you have such a small crew, it's a lot less pressure to keep that going while you rebuild. So it's a smart business decision to make. But we're human beings. And as much as it's unavoidable and sometimes you need to make these decisions and it sucks, it sucks. And you can't make it unsuck. Not unless you can shut yourself off emotionally. But you know what happens if you do? If you allow yourself, well, I'm going to be one of those people that just doesn't care, and I'm going to be really cold and whatever. And I mean, I have to be, for me to have to give that message to certain people, I have to have a level of, callousness. I have calluses that I've built, you know what I mean, for me to be able to do that. But you don't want to do it completely, because then you just become a cold business person, and you will pay for that in your own life. That coldness, you don't shut it off, like I said, at 5 o'clock or on the weekends. So that means that if you're cold with your employees completely, there's going to be that coldness at home. There's going to be that coldness with your friends. Like that callus is on. Once you're calloused, you're calloused. Those calluses are there. You know what I mean? They're there. And that applies to you as a person, and therefore radiates out from you to everybody around you. So in order to regain or to remain human and a feeling human, you have to allow yourself to be hurt and upset and scared and devastated. As much as it sucks, I have to let myself go through that, because that's keeping me an integral human being. And it's reminding me of what's important. And I never want to feel this again. I never want to feel this again. So you better believe that what I do after here will be cognizant of the fact that I never want to feel this again. So that's my message. Have a good day.